All right. All right, Sev.
All right.
Number 11,
Yeah.
Isaiah Thomas. Number 11.
He was your favorite number 11?
He's the only
Bob
number 11.
Bob McAdoo with the Lakers, I think, might have been 11.
I think Marcus Banks was 11 for the Celtics, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, UNLV running rebel.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Maybe not though, but I'm almost positive he was. But who cares?
Okay.
Um, so since this, nothing we do is normal, but the calendar's not normal.
No.
We're about a month away from the draft, maybe 6 weeks or whatever. Let's talk about the draft.
Okay.
Not specifically players that are in the draft because I know nobody. I don't know anyone in the draft, but talk about the draft process. Let's talk about because you and I have been with NBA teams. We've helped prepare players for the draft. We've been to agent workouts. We've been employed by agents to work out players. So let's talk about, I think it'll be cool for the 5 people who actually listen to us and watch us on a weekly basis to sort of talk about the draft process.
Right.
Why don't you open it up?
Okay. Well, for those, I'm sure most people are well versed on the draft night, and the draft lottery, but we're going to talk about what happens from the last college game of a player's season, which is usually mid-March, right around in there, up until the draft in late June. Mm-hmm. What happens in those 4 months as players prepare for the draft and the work that goes into it, including the draft workouts that teams have for players. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the kind of 4-month period that we're looking at, talking about today. And let's be honest right up front. So for all the people out there that think about college players as student athletes, okay, for those who are considering going to the draft out of college, the student part goes out the window as soon as their last game is played. Because from that point on, they're going to start preparing for the draft, and that college thing goes right out the window. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, I think the agent thing is done by the time their last game's played. For the most part, agents thing's done. They've already told them where they're going to go for their draft training. It's a little different now because there's so many more people doing the draft training. But I think that they've got this whole thing planned, and usually, unless they want to do a favor for the coach and keep them in good academic standing, if they're an underclassman or an upperclassman and still needs to graduate, they tend to try to stay as long as they can. But for the most part, it's out the window. I'd say 90% of it's out the window, and they're flying to LA or they're Miami or wherever they're going to do their draft training.
And if they do decide to pull their name out of the draft and go back to college, now there's some scrambling that has to go on as far as summer school and eligibility and making up for classes that you missed and all that. And we're not here to talk about that, but let's be perfectly clear that these college players, once they've decided to go into the draft, their college standing as a student, unless they're a post grad, but that's very rare,
right,
is over.
So. Right. Yeah, I remember. So let's talk about. I don't want to go back and forth with it. So let's talk about. Okay, so say it's like March, April, like it's late March. They get eliminated. They're probably in the next 2 weeks gonna go somewhere to work out. Usually, the agent has one trainer that works with all their guys. When we were with Grover, we had multiple agents, but I think most of now agents, because there's a million people running around doing the training, I think agents now have their own people doing it. So, so they usually have like a month, 6 weeks sort of to prepare for the pre-draft combine and then the workouts that come with it, so let's talk about that, Sev.
Okay. And like you said, most agencies now hire a trainer, and then he has some guys running around helping him with the workouts. Los Angeles, Miami, Chicago are the main places that I've heard of, that I'm aware of, where they take place. And there's two things that have to happen during that 6 weeks. And the most important thing to me is their physical being, their body. Does he need to lose weight? Does he need to tone up? Does he need to rehab from an injury? So the number one thing to me is the physical transformation or rehab that needs to take place with that player before they get in front of the league.
Right. Right. There's not a lot of time. I mean, usually,
Right.
like I said, they'll have a solid month, 6 weeks or so to get ready for, the draft workouts. And we'll talk about draft workouts and sort of their schedule and lack of time in between workouts to get ready for the next. But so they got a month, 6 weeks to work with a trainer. Usually have a strength coach and then a
Yes.
basketball trainer that sort of whips them into shape. And the basketball, skills trainer works them through, simulates tries to develop their skill work, and then also simulates the draft workouts that they're going to have, some of the drills that they're going to see. It's almost impossible to prepare them because all these drills are, some teams are really basic with it and some teams are, try to be advanced as possible. But I think for the most part, like you said, get in best possible shape, get a lot of shots up, work on some specific skill things, sets that are going to come up in situations to train them for, their auditions that they're going to have.
Yes. And a lot of times, Sweets, it's a positional change from what they were in college.
Right.
All of a sudden you were a center. Now you're expected to play the 3-4.
Right.
So a lot of your training and your skill development, it may be new. There may be, now you're expected to shoot threes.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're expected to be able to play out of a short roll, or you never were really a pick and roll guy in college as a guard. Now, that's what you got to be to play professional. So, body transformation and possibly position transformation, which means different skills, like you said.
Yeah, I think as a trainer, when you're trying to get these players ready, again, I've done it. I did it with Grover for about 8 years or so. I think what you're really trying to do is get them ready for the audition.
Right.
They got to pass the look test first. So with Grover, he always got guys in great shape, trying to melt fat off. They had fat, trying to add muscle if they needed muscle, but trying to make them look like they've got, the physical part done, and then get them ready for the lifting part. What is it? 185. They got to lift. They got to lift. Is that the?
Let's ask Durant. He couldn't lift it, so it's probably 135.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. Yeah.
I think it's like 185, and to see how many times they're going to lift it, and then all the physical sort of drills they're going to see at the combine.
Right.
So I think that's it.
It's almost like you got to teach them to the test.
Yeah, and that's it. You're trying to give the answer
to the test.
Yeah, and get them comfortable because they're going to shoot threes.
Yeah.
They're going to get shots up. You want to clean their footwork up to make sure, and we'll get into the workouts themselves in a minute, but you want to make sure they're going to get shots up. They're going to handle the ball. They're going to deal with some spacing things in live situations. So get them used to that. And then, defensively, just make them look like they sort of care, which they don't. And then that's it. So just getting them shots, putting them in situations, getting them comfortable with the 3-point line, because the NBA, there's two things, Sev, the NBA 3-point line and the NBA ball compared to the college ball. They're going to have to get ready for those two things too.
Yeah, that's two major adjustments right there. And then also for some of the, not the top guys, but the guys kind of in the middle or maybe even below, they have to be prepared, Sweets, for 5-on-5 competition if they're going to go to Portsmouth or if they're actually going to play in the pre-draft combine scrimmages.
Right. So
some of those guys are not going to play in that, let's be honest. The top guys usually aren't. But there's some guys that have to be prepared for 5-on-5 competition.
Yeah, so the schedule usually is they end the Final Four. Then about a week later or so, there's something called the Portsmouth Invitational, where some of the top seniors in the country get invited. And if they want to accept the invitation, they go to Portsmouth, Virginia, and they compete on just 5-on-5. They do some physical testing as far as your height, weight, length, and all that stuff, and arm length, and and things, and put that out to NBA teams, and they play in front of NBA front office people as well as fans in Churchland High School in Virginia, and then they go through that for like 4 or 5 days. Then they get ready for the draft. Then they have the pre-draft combine for top players. Usually ends up in Chicago. Obviously, this year it will be a little different. I'm not sure how many players get invited to that. Portsmouth's about 60 players, and then the pre-draft camp, 64 players maybe?
It seems to me it was in the mid-60s,
yeah.
If I can remember.
And that could be freshmen, sophomores, juniors, whoever's actually in the draft.
And could include a few guys from Portsmouth who played pretty well, and then they get invited. Yeah.
And then players go to their pre-draft workouts. So the first stage is, if you do go to Portsmouth, they don't really train with a trainer before Portsmouth because it's so close. I remember we didn't really get guys until after Portsmouth, and then players after Portsmouth get ready for the combine, and then once the combine happens, and then the list comes out to the NBA of who's staying in the draft, then they have all these pre-draft workouts to start. So, so basically, as a trainer, you've got a group of guys in Chicago. Well, Grover, we had about, I'd say, 10 to 15 guys that we worked with every day, and that was Rajon Rondo. That was Dwayne Wade. That was Andre Iguodala.
Your guy Plumlee.
That was the Plumlee. All 9 Plumlees worked with us. So we had a lot of guys working out, with us. OJ Mayo worked out with us. I mean, there's a lot, but so you're getting these players ready. And then it's weird because sometimes the agent only wants to work with that player individually. So you can't work that player out in a group. So they're just sort of like away from the group. And, so a lot of these agents sort of dictate what you want to do with them. And then they go to the teams. And so, so now they're doing their training. They're getting ready for these pre-draft camps. And then they go to the teams. And let's talk about that.
Okay. And just to back up a little bit, the give and take and the political pull and push between the agent and the trainer, can get a little delicate at times.
Sure.
And it gets political, but just so people are aware that there's a lot of that goes on behind the scenes, with the agent and the trainer.
So let's go back to that too. And it's funny because, the agent's got to flip the cost for all this. And, pre-draft training can cost you, agents do it they do it 3 ways. Usually you could pay by guy, and this is the old days where you could send them to different trainers. Trainers probably will cost you $6,000 to $10,000 per player, not counting meals, not counting rent, if you're renting apartments and other expenses. So it could cost you up to about $15,000 a guy. What agents would do is usually hire their own person, pay them a weekly fee, because if you have 8 or 9 guys and you're paying, $10,000 a guy, it's costing you $100,000, and usually you're flipping all the bill. But what they usually do is pay their own guy like $1,500 a week or $2,000 a week, or even less than that if you're cheap. And then,
we won't mention those agents.
Won't mention those names. And then they'll rent out this huge apartment, or these huge house, and have everybody stay in the house just to sort of lower their cost. So, and some agents are cheap and some agents are, but it is expensive. So I understand. And then they dictate.
And the return on your investment is not a guarantee.
No,
it's kind of a crapshoot with the agents, unless you have, you guarantee top 1 or 2 or 3 pick. But those guys probably don't need a lot of pre-draft work.
No, there was a time the agents got smart too. They were, they would give these guys lines of credit. So they would take them to a bank, get a line of credit, which is a crazy interest rate. And then the player would pay for the training with that. And then they'll see themselves 50, 60, 70 grand in the hole, with these lines of credit. So, but it gets costly, and especially if you have to go to LA and rent a house, and then you got food you got to buy and all this stuff. You got to rent a car or whatever. So it gets a little pricey. And then the agent tries to dictate to the trainer what to work on and what to do, what they want to see. If teams come in and watch the workout in your place, usually they want them to go 1-on-0. They don't want to see them against people. Sev, why don't you take us through the pro days? Because now agents have pro days. You've been to a million of them.
Yeah.
Why don't you take them through that?
Yeah, a pro day is where an agency sends out the invitation to all the teams. So and so is going to have their agency pro day at this high school, at this college, at this time, and please respond back with how many people from your team you think will be there. And so they get a kind of a head count. So then you go to the gym. They'll have the young gals there passing out literature. These are the players that are working out. These are their stats. These are their height and weight. And they will go through, I believe you can only have no more than 6 on the court.
Mm-hmm.
So say you got 12 players in your workout, there's obviously going to be 2 sessions of about 45 minutes to an hour long. They will have the trainer, and he'll have some helpers rebounding and passing. And the workout is usually they want to get it as high level energy as they can, enthusiasm and all that stuff.
9 minutes.
Pardon me?
So 9 minutes.
Yeah, that stuff wears off after about 5 minutes. But, it's usually a high energy shooting emphasis workout, and everything, finishing, mid-range, pick and roll shots, pick and pop shots, tons of 3-point shooting. They'll put them in situations where maybe the helpers will be defenders, but it's just BS defense. So it could be a 2-on-0 or a 3-on-0 with bullshit defenders, and maybe pick and roll decisions, things like that. No competitive, for the most part. Now, I've been to a lot, and I've seen very few competitive 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 type situations, which is what the pro guys really like to see.
Right.
But the agents don't want you to see.
Right.
For the most part. They want to kind of protect guys. So it's a lot of shooting, Sweet Chuck. Usually towards the last 10 or 15 minutes, they'll put the guys through some sort of a conditioning shooting drill. Could be a team thing where all 6 guys are doing it. Could be one guy does it, then the next guy does it. Almost warrior drills type stuff. Some sort of a full court conditioning to kind of show what kind of shape they're in. And that usually takes 45 minutes to an hour. And at that point, stop, 5-minute break. Then the next group of 6 guys comes in the door, and they pretty much go through the same thing. I've seen it, done a million different times, and usually that's the structure. Very, very seldom will you see competitive drills, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 being done.
Yeah, because the agent doesn't want to see any deficiency of their players.
Yeah, and you know what it ends up becoming? It ends up becoming, a great time for the whole league's there.
Yeah.
There'll be 3 or 4 guys from every front office, and it becomes a great time to talk to those other guys.
Right.
And kind of network and catch up with friends that you haven't seen for a while. So a lot of it turns into that.
Yeah. And then what's, on the NBA side, when these guys come in for the NBA workouts.
Right. Now we're talking specific team workouts.
Right. So that becomes a shit show because now you've got all these players and they're slotted. Like players are slotted into top 2, top 3. Then there's lottery guys. Then there's first rounders and there's second borderline first rounders. So like depending on where you're drafting, you're trying to get all these players and you have to schedule them in because they're coming in from other cities. So these players usually, go to a city. They it used to be they come in the night before, then they spend the night in the city.
Right.
Usually take, back when I was working for the Celtics, we would take them out to eat.
Yes, that still happens. They take the group out with one of the front office guys for dinner. Right.
Talk to them, get a good sense of, what kind of person they are or people they are. Then they, spend the night at the hotel. In the morning, you pick them up. If they haven't tested physically yet with the lifting or the vertical jump, they'll get all their size, height, and measurements in with that team because the team usually wants to have that data for themselves, as well as share it with other teams if they choose to do so.
Right.
And so they all come in. They can only have 6 on the court at once. So 6 players, anywhere from 1 to 6 players come in, and then they do the testing. They weigh, height, size.
And a lot of times, Sweets, not to interrupt, but a lot of times the team doctor will also be there to check them out.
Right. So they do all the physical things. lifting things that they need to. If they need to do any type of sprint work, they'll usually do it after. Then you bring them in, you work them out. I mean, the workouts are basically they get shots up, ball handling up, shots up, usually positional, and then some situational 2-on-0, 3-on-0. And then and depending on if they're like borderline first round draft picks, usually lottery picks won't go live unless it's something that, you're dictating. If two players are like, if you're slotted at the 4th pick and 2 guys you bring in the top 10, like 8, 9, 10, they'll go competitive. But usually players don't go competitive unless they're later picks. So then you have these 6 players. They got shots up. They did situational stuff. Then they'll play 1-on-1, 2-on-2, and 3-on-3. Usually half court. All your coaches are there. All your front office are there. Your ownership's there. And this is where it gets dangerous. I'm totally against pre-draft workouts in the sense because for a couple of reasons. A lot of these players that you're going to get are going to work out for 20 teams or 20 teams, work out for teams multiple times. They're tired. Their legs are tired.
And you know what the best thing they get out of that 20-team workout is?
Free gear.
20 different sets of gear.
Yeah, that's it. They get free gear. They get the team gear they usually get to keep. And
they have no idea what day of the week it is.
No.
Just like, where am I going next? Who am I working? It's a grind.
Because
it's a 20 job interviews in a 25-day period.
Yep.
It's very, very tough.
You're flying. You do the physical. So players sometimes got to take a physical before they can get on the court. So they're doing that in the morning or the night before. They get them in special in the hospital and the doctors. Then they do that. They come to you. They do the basketball workout. And then usually they talk. But the problem with the pre-draft workouts are your coaches that never seen them for the most part because they're so locked into their season. And players that aren't very good or really good, they do really well or really badly in this workout, which they're usually not going against anybody. Now they want to draft them 5 instead of 55 where they're really slated because they have this unbelievable pre-draft workout. And it gets you in trouble. But then again, it can get you in trouble when these really good players are tired or they just don't have it that day and they're not bringing it that day. It's really hard to judge because you have all your scouts who've seen them countless times, done the intel, watched them, went to practice, and they've got the player pretty much scoped out as far as how good or not good they are. And now your coaching staff comes in. And look, if I'm a coach, I want to see the player up live too because I'm the one who has to play the player. But it can get dangerous when now like this player that like does really well in a workout that's not a very good player. And then you sort of have this bias because he's up in front. So
well, everything you're talking about comes down to 2 things, Sweet Chuck.
Yeah.
Recency bias.
Yes.
Is something that, you have to be very aware of, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is these situations really, you can tell what front office coaching staffs are really on the same page.
Yeah.
And do the coaches trust the front office and the scouts?
Right.
Right. And I've seen it both ways.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I understand.
You have to take the recency bias out of it.
Yeah.
If it's good or bad. And you have to understand that the college scouts and the front office guys have seen these guys play for 2-3 years, million times, whatever. And you have to trust them. Okay?
Yeah.
So, and to me, Sweet Chuck, the most important things to get out of pre-draft workouts are the medical information, the physical things with the player, and how good a shape they're in. How seriously have they taken the last 2 months to get in shape?
Right.
So it's the physical status of their body, what kind of condition they're in, and then what's their attitude.
Yeah, I agree. Like if I'm coming in with a player, I want to see deficiencies physically. I want to see their rail length. I want to see their athletic ability, anything you can get them to do athletically, explosiveness, because when you watch them, sometimes when you watch them real close, it's a lot better than watching them just on film. Deficiency in their shot, if there's something that your developmental staff has to do, and then let your people talk to the kid and see what type of kid he is. I think if you give them a lot of instruction in workouts,
Oh, you can't do that.
no, but if you put them in situations and you're like, well, we're gonna do this. This is how we're gonna cover it, or try to put some, put some extra things in the drills just to see how they take instruction as far as how they compute some things, how smart they are, sort of how they handle coaching.
Right.
I don't care about what's done, but I think sometimes you got to sort of test the kid a little bit.
I agree with you on that. You give them and mainly it's like you give them a 3-on-3 situation and say, here's the situation. We want you to do this and this and make this and this read, and then just watch them.
Yeah.
How much have they absorbed what you just told them? And then how do they react on the floor? What I don't like to see is in a pre-draft workout, one of the assistant coaches, stops the play and makes corrections, and you need to do this and instructs. And
no,
that takes time away from watching. That's what I meant.
Yeah, that's not your job. And,
come on. Just give them a quick, here's what I want to see. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Go do it. Don't.
If they do it wrong, if you're telling them, hey, we're going right, and they go left, you stop and, hey, we're going left. But like when you're trying to make these corrections, hey, look, after the workout, if you want to take them to the side, that's great. But they're in a job interview, and look,
that's not the time to correct their shot.
No, I've seen that happen before.
Me too.
That's not pretty. Like during a pre-draft workout, look, they've, it's either pretty or it's ugly. It doesn't matter. It's like what they're comfortable and confident at. So you just let them go. But I mean, I've seen these workouts. We had I was in China at the time, but I've seen the film. We had Michael Carter Williams working out, and look, he worked out for a bunch of teams. He was a high draft pick, and it's like a low energy workout, just getting shots. And those are the workouts that are tough to sort of evaluate. I'll tell you my first pre-draft story.
All right. And you give me one pre-draft story, then I'll give you mine.
Perfect. So, 97, I'm a senior at Suffolk University, and
magna cum laude.
No, Summa can't read. That's what I was in. So Rick Pitino just got the Celtics job, and they were working guys out at like UMass Boston, which is this big. They used to have the NBA Summer League there. It's just this big open space, and Pitino never liked that stuff. So Leo Papil, my boss, they just got hired with the Celtics. They needed a place, so I got them Suffolk University. Couple of great stories here. First of all, before the workout even starts, Rick Pitino kicked the AD's son out of the workout because he was up in the balcony watching. We had this small gym at Suffolk. So here's the AD who gave you the gym for free. The kid's like a BC, he's like a freshman at BC or whatever. He's just watching. Great kid, quiet, didn't make a sound. All Pitino sends his assistant, Jim O'Brien, to come kick the kid out of the gym, the poor bastard. So that's the first story. But so I don't know what a pre-draft workout looks like because it's my first time. So they have Keith Van Horn come in. And Keith Van Horn, white dude, 6'10", 6'11", shot the hell out of it. And here's Pitino, who knocked out two vets the day before in the same workout. Here's this kid who looks like Larry Bird, Oscar Robertson, Wilt Chamberlain, whatever you want to call it, the guy looked like that day. Barely missed a shot, went through that workout like a hot knife through butter. Did all these running drills, ball handling drills. They had him go live against coaches. He kicked the shit out of those guys. And then he had this drill. I call it TKO. It's this drill where it's the hardest drill I've ever seen. And it's where it's 6 spots on the court. And he's dripping wet. And the Celtics had the 3rd and the 5th pick, I believe. That was the 3rd and 6th. That was the draft. They're supposed to get Duncan. They didn't get him, and they had 2 lottery picks. So the drill is 2 spots. 2 spots in the corners, 2 spots in the wings, 2 spots in the top of the key, right and left. You got to take 3 shots at each spot: a 3-pointer, a 1 dribble, either right or left pull up, and a 1 dribble get to the rim dunk. But what you have to do, Sev, is both everything's paired up. So you get the 2 corners first. So you take your jump shot. After every shot, you got to sprint through the baseline. So 3-point shots, sprint through the baseline.
Opposite baseline.
Yeah, 3-point. No. So same baseline. So it's corner to corner. So it's 3-point shot, run through the baseline, 3-point shot, run through the baseline, one dribble, run through, one dribble, dunk, dunk, and then go to the wings, do the same thing, and the top. It's the hardest. I've seen grown-ass men weep after doing this drill. This guy
how did he do?
Slice through it, Sev, like I would on a pork chop. Like forget about it. Just went right through. And it was the hardest workout I've ever seen. And it's the first one. I never knew what these things were like. And Pitino by far is the best head coach I've ever seen that worked players out. And because it was live, gave them instruction, drill to drill, quick, and like never really talked too much and just went at it. And here's this guy going hard as hell. I think he got drafted. Obviously, Duncan was 1. I think he went 2 in that draft. The Celtics really wanted him to drop to 3, and I think Philly or someone at 2 grabbed him. And that was my pre-draft story as far as a pre-draft workout. And it was insane. It was insane, but not really. But for me, it was like watching Pitino work, watching this kid first pre-draft workout I've ever seen. And
you know why Pitino went so hard on him? Because he knew Larry Bird was not walking through that door.
No, he was not.
He thought this was the next Larry Bird.
Yeah, he was. This is the 96 Larry Bird, not the 86 Larry Bird.
Right.
But what was your story?
Okay, well, my most memorable pre-draft story, it was in between my first and second year with the Bulls. So it was probably summer of 2009. Mm-hmm. We were still at the Berto Center. And we had a pre-draft workout. We had 6 guys in. I didn't really know any of the guys, but the one little guy that I did know, because he was from Chicago and I'd seen him on TV, was Patrick Beverly. Mm-hmm. He was coming out of Arkansas.
Yeah, we had him in pre-drafted Grovers, right?
Yeah, so that's I kind of knew him a little bit. So here comes this little ball of energy, into the workout. So, and we did a lot of competitive stuff, 3-on-3 full court stuff, because I think it's important to see competitive spirit as well. Who's going to really compete in the drills? So we're going really hard, 3-on-3, and it's one of those summer days in Chicago where they had these huge thunderstorms come through.
Right.
And in the middle of the workout, the 3-on-3, the power goes out at the Berto Center.
No doubt.
It knocks all the power out, no lights, the whole thing. So, the coach is over there. I said, Vinny, what do you want to do? He said, I don't know. So Patrick Beverly comes right up to me. Coach, he's sweaty, the whole thing. Coach, he goes, we got to keep going. Let's just open these side doors up and get some light in here, and we'll just keep playing.
No kidding.
The other 5 guys said, are you guys okay? Yeah, Coach, that's fine. So I go down, I open up all the doors at the end of the Berto Center to get some light in the gym. There's enough light to keep playing, and we continued to play the 3-on-3 drill to finish it out. And that was all because Pat Beverly insisted that we continued his workout by opening up the doors.
That's crazy.
And we always talk about that now. Remember that pre-draft workout? That was pretty good.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite things when I was in Boston, my job was to pick the players up at the airport. And, and we'll go over this in another podcast, but when you and I used to work Nike in the summer and work out all these guys at first-round picks, so I would know most of them.
Right.
Not anymore, but it's, so I would go in a limo and we would have to pick up.
Were you driving?
I wish. No, I wish. No.
I can see Sweet Chuck with that little hat on.
Believe me, I'm about 2 weeks away from taking a job like that, but not yet. But I would have to go to Logan Airport, go in the terminal, pick the guy up. I was like the guy with the sign, the Bud Light commercial with Mike Kirizuski. Yes, I am. So I had to go in, pick him up, and then we'd have all these guys. I never forget one of these times we had this guy 7'5", Slavko Vranis.
Slavko, yeah.
Slavko. Spoke no English. This is like 2004. Spoke 0 English. So we take him to Legal Seafood. It was me, my guy Frank Burke that worked for the Celtics, and 4 of these other players. And Slavko was with us. He knew no English, and I knew he had no Google Translate or anything like that. So it was the funniest thing. I'm a huge Seinfeld guy. And there was a paella episode about paella, about George Costanza's parents having paella. So I see paella on the menu, and she goes, what do you guys want? You and your big friend? I said, I will have the paella and my friend will have the same. So this guy who speaks no English gets this big pile of paella and wailed through it. And but no, it was cool though to pick those guys up, talk to them on the ride, talk to them about how many teams they're working out for, and that's where you get your intel from the guys and like what kind of guys they are. Are they like Eddie Haskell scam artists, or they, I think that again, if you're a coach or player development or even in management, learning how to talk to guys and just sort of talk to them and always have your intel antennas up as far as like, triggers as far as is guy, good guy, how does he handle people like that he interacts with, the limo driver, does he tip people,
right?
And things like that. But that was one of my favorite things, just picking those players up. I used to do it.
That's great. And just one real quick one, last one, just reminded me something that you said. When I was with the team, they had the number one pick in the draft,
right?
The overall number one pick. And I remember listening to the front office guys talk about player one versus player two. It was going to be one of these two guys were going to be the top pick, and they couldn't really decide. And then they brought up a story where they interviewed these two players, these two kids, in the pre-draft process, and asked them both the same question. And the question was, what was the most the thing that you didn't like the most about college, playing in college? The one player says, I really didn't like going to class and having to, worry about academics and go to class and all that. I really didn't like that. The other player said, losing. Now, the player that said losing lost one game in college.
Right.
The national championship game. So based on those two answers, the owner of the team said, we're taking the kid that said losing. And he lost one game, as opposed to the other kid who said, I really didn't like going to class. I thought that was a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, when I was in Boston, we had a bunch of those stories. We had one guy that we worked out that when we were talking to him, taught with just in regular conversation, was talking about a vodka that he was drinking that was literally like black market vodka that was almost like liquid cocaine that he would drink.
That's a red flag, Sweet Chuck.
Yeah, a little bit of red flag. There was a guy that motherfucked the Seton Hall staff, and one of our coaches in Boston was an assistant coach at Seton Hall at one point of his career. So that knocked him out. There was one guy that was about to go like doing their full court sprints and then looked up at the ellipticals with the TVs and asked if there was HBO on there right before we were about to blow the whistle to go. I mean, I saw some stuff, man. That
the lack of self-awareness will destroy a career pretty quick.
Without question. But, so
you can go to the 10th guy to the second round or something. It's crazy.
All these players that are jockeying for these spots. And then, the pre-draft camp. So they go to this pre-draft camp in Chicago. That's, you get the team workouts that usually take place after Chicago. But Chicago is usually 64 players or so that get invited. What the hell happened? You all right?
Yeah, did something go wrong?
It looked like an explosion or something. All right, whatever. I don't know. Could be my pot roast in the oven. But anyway.
It could be the oil tanker out here in the bay exploding. Who knows?
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, it's probably my career that just went up in flames, so don't worry about it. So
it'll be all right, Sweet Chuck. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. It'll be all right. But there's 64 players that get invited to this thing. And it's just they break them up into two groups. They get shots up. They do drills, situations. Coaches out there with pads. They don't do a lot of competitive stuff anymore. They used to play 5-on-5. And then, most of this stuff is for the medical testing.
Yes.
They compete during the day. They get these medical testing after the camp. So they come in, they get their shots up. They work out. They used to play. Maybe they still do play.
They play a little bit, Sweet Chuck.
Yeah.
But not much.
But a lot of these guys say they're not going to play and they just want to, get shots up. They meet with the teams at night in the hotels, usually.
That's huge.
No doubt.
Those team interviews.
Yeah. And you find out so much from these players in these interviews. And again, I think that's the best part of this whole thing is the interviews and talking to the guys. So they play and work out on court during the days. Then at night they have their interviews. By the end, they do their physical testing, the benching the 185, where Durant couldn't even get one. He's one of the best players of NBA history. So you know how bullshit that is.
There you go.
They do like a shuttle test where they got to like basically use the key as, sprinting up, defensive slide, back pedal.
Lateral movement, mainly.
Yeah, full court sprints, half court sprints.
A jump thing.
What's up? Yeah, vertical leap. So you got this camp where you got every GM, every coach, every assistant GM. There's about 500 people in the gym, and they're watching these guys work out, shoot, and trying to jockey for position and for these, for the camp stuff and for the draft workouts. And it's an unbelievable process because it really doesn't mean a lot, because you could scam people into thinking that you're a really good draft pick. A lot of these agents are afraid to have them work out in front of guys, certain teams, or they don't want them to compete. I don't know, man. I'm always to like, if I'm a boxing manager or I'm a boxing coach, I always want my guy to fight. Like, if you're good, I don't care who you're going to go against. You're going to go against this person,
Yeah.
But
well, I think we've given our 5 listeners hopefully a little bit of a better understanding about what happens between the end of March and draft night.
Yeah, so it's basically picking your agent, working out, trying to get into Chicago, Portsmouth if you're a senior, or Chicago. You get these team workouts, and then the media comes in, and ESPN and all these guys come through these gyms to watch you work out and report on you. I love when these guys don't work out against anybody. Like, no one's working out yet, and then people are like rising in the draft and falling into the draft. I think that's a pretty funny situation as well. Like,
yeah, and just kind of as a last thing, what I found out is like, the people that work in the front office, and they don't put very, very little validity into mock drafts.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah,
whatever. That's a fan thing,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys that do the mocks, you could probably call them, give them fake. I gave them tons of fake information once. Oh,
yeah. You know what I have that's mock? I got a mock turtle. I got a mock turtle net that my wife makes me wear every now and then. Yeah, mock. That's what I know. I don't know mock draft.
Hey, one last story. I know we said this 5,000 times. Right?
Are we on 23-23?
Oh, we're in 23 hours and 23 minutes.
Okay. We're like that game last night with all those reviews. The last 2 minutes took 35 minutes to play.
I was watching season 4, 24. I couldn't go less. But so in Boston, we're going to promise Marcus Banks. It was done, right? So we're trying to keep the secret and this was early. This was like May. This is Memorial Day weekend. So it was May, and we're going to promise Marcus Banks. They sent me to Vegas to get information on Marcus Banks.
Did you get it from Tark?
No. I got it. I wish I got it from Tark. He might have given me some good information, actually.
Hey, Mike, let me tell you about Marcus.
So I had to fly out. And again, we're trying to keep this secret. And I go and I talk to the staff. I talk to some media people. I talk to some other guys. So I'm walking on the strip, right? And, I'm always self-aware of who's walking around. Well, who's 300 yards coming at me was the beat writer for the Boston Celtics and the Boston Herald, Steve Bulpett, who was like angling around. I think he was just there for vacation. He was just going to Vegas. But if he would have saw me there, I don't know if he would have put 2 and 2. But here I am trying to get my intel on Marcus Banks on the strip. And at this time and date, I mean, the chances of this happening is astronomical.
Sweet Chuck, you would have had to tell him, if he calls you on it, what are you doing here? You'd have had to say, I'm getting married.
Yeah, no doubt. No, Elvis is going to get me in about 2 minutes. But I had to duck
for the team.
I had to duck into an alley, where this guy never saw me. but here it is. But yeah, that was my pre-draft. I think all my stories were terrible today, but
No, they were good. Good,
but I
Steve.
thought that. But yeah, the pre-draft thing is pretty fun. I mean, you and I did some pre-draft together with Grover. I think it's good. You get to know the guys, and like what do we have? We had Rondo and
Yeah.
oh man, we had a lot of guys, man.
A lot of guys, yeah. That's a lot of fun because in 6 weeks you can kind of get to know the guys pretty good, as opposed to if you're running it for a team, which we've both done. That you're with them for an hour.
Right. Right. Like with us, we both ran them. They last about 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours, like an hour of shots, plenty of breaks. Then they got to work out. Then they got to do all these like conditioning shooting drills, these situational drills. You want your scouts, you always ask your front office, what do you want them to do?
Yeah. Most times they kind of dictate.
Yeah.
Here's the script, or they may go off script and come down and say, hey, I want to see them do this.
Yeah. I remember one of my first years in Boston, like they had 3 picks. So like here are the guys, Sev, that we had in the first year. Zach Randolph, Gilbert Arenas, Richard Jefferson, Tony Parker, Joe Forte. Man, we had plenty. I think Jay Rich was in that draft. I mean, we had so many guys that sometimes you see. I mean, the pre-draft process is pretty interesting, man. And Luke Walton was in that draft. We had him work out. We had so many picks, but the jockeying for position to try to get guys to come in and work out for you, because again, the players flying in, they grab dinner. Maybe they don't even have time to do that. They work out. They're on the flight. Right after the workout, they're usually trying to catch a flight to their next city.
Yeah, they're like a rock band on tour. I mean, fly into the next city and do it all over.
And then, like, if guys scratch the last minute, you got to get local college guys to come in and work out for you. We call them sparring partners.
Yeah.
Spider Rico from Rocky. I mean, like.
Yeah, all of a sudden, so-and-so from, Long Beach State or something shows up as a fill-in guy. We're lucky here in LA and we've got a really good guy who's on top of that on our staff. But if that happens, it happens a lot. He'll be able to call a guy and get him here, for the workout.
Yeah, you can only work him out. Like, I think you can only work out a guy twice in the process unless they change that rule. And man, like it's pretty interesting, man. How these guys could jump. Remember Troy Bell? Like,
oh sure.
Before we should have got fined $8 million in Boston. We didn't really know. I knew his agent, Bill Duffy. This is the first time I met Duffy, but I worked out Troy when he was in college before I was with the Celtics. So he wanted someone to work out with, and there was really no rule back then, I don't think. So I ended up working out Troy Bell at the Celtics facility, like literally for like a month straight, working him out every day just to get shots up and get him ready for the draft. And then we hired a trainer for him, a physical trainer, and the guy ended up testing out, he ended up testing out number 1 athlete at the pre-draft camp. Like he went from someone who was like a second round pick to getting picked in the first round. I think in the lottery, if I'm not mistaken, gets in the lottery, was only in the NBA for like 1 year, and then he was out. I mean, it's the pre-draft process could, elevate you high. I mean, then you could get underlooked, and then you get better, and you're in the NBA for 10, 15 years, man. I mean, yeah. So that's about it, Sev.
All right, sweets. Well, good session.
Yeah. Definitely they're going to tune out after 15 minutes on this one. I don't think anybody's going to get to this point.
Nobody's making it through this whole.
Nah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So,
All right. Well, until next time.